I've talked a bit about Crushers in the past, but it's time to check in on them in the 1.2 patch. These hulking monstrosities are definitely the biggest and most expensive cavalry you've ever seen in a Total War Warhammer game, rocking in at a massive 1900 for the Great Weapon variant, but they do have a huge amount of killing power, 130 weapon strength to pop with 30 bonus versus large, 80 charge bonus, 120 armor on 12 unit models. A pretty good amount of HP, nothing too crazy. Only 30 melee defense is also pretty bad for a unit of this cost. They definitely rely on that 120 armor to resist damage, so obviously going to be weak to any kind of AP. But given that they are on the Ogre Kingdom's roster, they also have access to excellent healing and one of the best offensive support spells, in my opinion, which is Bull Gorger right here. Reminds me of Sneaky Stabbing for the Greenskins. Just gives a nice melee attack and AP buff, which again, for an offensive armor-piercing unit like Crushers, is an excellent direct synergy. I'm up against Coops once again, my patron. I'm coming in here with the Slaughtermaster. We've got the Powder Guts, the Man-Eater's pistols, dressed in their Empire garb. We've got some Bulls up front with some Noblars, and then the two Crushers, Iron Blaster out on the side. People kind of stopped using these after the nerfs, but they are still quite good when used in the right situation. For Kislev, got a Snow Leopard striking out. Try and get at the big cannon piece there. More Snow Leopards here. Warbear Riders, Boris leading the way with the Patriarch and a Frost Maiden. Lots of Kossar Spear Archers. Actually only 3 with 2 Zargard. And yeah, some more Warbear Riders. So going relatively tall, narrow, and elite with this Kislev army, which I definitely understand. Let's see how it ends up working out. Zargard going to clash in the front line. You can see there that the Snow Leopard did manage to at least temporarily interrupt the Iron Blaster, but now they are being crushed by the Crushers. Let's watch up on the high ground as here comes Boris and the big engagement. They're going to charge some Noblars initially. I'm going to try and pin them in place with the Bulls. And these Bulls are obviously going to get massacred. There's no question about that. But here come the Crushers. You can see that Bull Gorger, that little symbol there. That is, in fact, Bull Gorger being popped. And we check in now. They're up to 153 weapon strength with 68 melee attacks. Still got their charge bonus active, too. And those poor Warbear Riders, even with the Tor's Battle Hymn, Swiftwing buffs going off, they're already hitting their By Our Blood passive, just taking huge damage from those Crushers. Of course, the Ogre Bulls, they are paying the absolute iron price. But still, we've got the Man-Eaters in a position to try and tee off on Boris. Does he have a missile block chance? No, he does not have a missile block chance. I don't think he even carries a shield, come to think of it. Other Crusher is pushing up and around the flank here, trying to see if they can get a position to come swinging in and hopefully maybe even rear charge the Bear Cavalry. Both units of Bear Cav are up here, even though the banner for one of them is down there. You can see that the models are now filtering up to challenge their elite monstrous Cav foes on the high ground. With the support of Boris, you might think this would go pretty well, and it does start to turn, even though this unit does get Troll Guts here, getting some extra healing. They've already paid for themselves just there. They tick up over on army value, damage value, that is. But still, definitely paying a pretty heavy price, especially with the Snow Leopard. This is a lot of elite anti-large AP. For Kislev, a little bit of Frostbite mixed in there as well, of course, from the Snow Leopard. Means that the Crushers, these unit of Crushers, are not going to be able to get away at all, but thankfully, I've got another one, and this is a pretty elite, pay no attention to the floating Ogre there. This is a pretty elite Ogre build, don't get me wrong. You've got 3 units costing 1900 plus, and none of them are characters, right? 2 very expensive cavalry, plus the Powder Guts. But considering these units can kind of cover each other's weaknesses, especially against Kislev, where you're not too weak to getting swarmed, Kislev model count tends to be relatively low. Yes, they could maybe go wide with Kossar Spears here, but even then, you probably still have the tools to deal with them. And especially against a more elite Kislev build like this, I feel like what I had worked out pretty well. But Snow Leopard's going to come in here, fell a few models from the Powder Guts. Their debuff will prevent them from losing this fight decisively, though, so they should do just fine there. Meanwhile, the other Crushers in on the rear charge. Again, just teeing off on the Bears. Those poor Warbear Riders, even after the buffs in the 1.2 update, still having just a really hard time. Boris finally finding himself somewhat unsupported, does manage to take down a few of the Crushers himself. He's in a full-on rage from the fury of Urson, giving himself some extra weapon damage and causing terror, which is obviously very useful. You can see the Crushers are weak to terror, generally. Ogres are going to be weak to leadership kind of bomb effects. So, definitely something to consider, but this unit of Crushers, I mean, even only 29 kills, but just insane value there. You can see they're up to rank 4, 3897 on value, so I mean, given the fact that, of course, the Warbear Riders were healing a little bit, does inflate their value, but you still got to do all that damage, right? And the Patriarch, too. Now, Boris getting caught up, trying to get away from this unit of Crushers here. Definitely not great. The rest of my army has been pretty well savaged. Zargard did a good job of just pushing through and cutting up all those Noblars, the Bulls, and everyone else. But now they're in a tough situation. They're going to be kited a little bit by these armor-piercing Ogre missile units. The Man-Eaters popping their pistols. Iron Blaster gets some brutal side shots in there. So it's a tough time to be a Zargard. And the Tsar himself, the Red Tsar, Boris Ursus, getting tangled up in the Crushers. And although he definitely has better stats, he'll trade okay here. Anytime a single entity is surrounded like this, especially by an elite kind of killing unit like Crushers, it's going to be very bad. You can see how Boris kind of gets perma-stagger locked here. It's a really rough situation for him. So, yeah, an interesting matchup for sure. I need to play this matchup a little bit more for both sides and see, but you know, kind of from the outset, it does seem like it's potentially going to be tough for Kislev in land battles. In domination, too. Personally, I remember having some issues, but that being said, I have seen some things, too. Yeah, in terms of army composition, it's tough to say here. I do think Little Grom is a great piece against the Ogres, but it can be tough to protect in land battles, especially. I don't know, I'd have to kind of think about things a little bit, but maybe only the one Warbear Rider, you switch the other one out for a Little Grom, and then maybe try and go a little bit wider, like cut the Zargard and just go with like a full line of Kossar archers, maybe a couple of armored Kossars. I don't really know. I'd kind of have to play around with it and see. And again, while I do love the pick of Boris here, his elite anti-large damage is very good. He's also reasonably expensive. I don't know. I feel like the other lords don't really do a ton for you here either, though. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I need to, again, like I said, I need to research this matchup more for myself in 1.2, but it definitely seems like maybe the Little Grom is perhaps the answer. I don't know. Anyway, Crushers are definitely a problem, though. I mean, here, if you try and tangle them with them in melee as Kislev, they are just going to roll over your face, and I'm pretty sure in the future, in Immortal Empires, they'll roll pretty much every other cavalry faction, too. I mean, of course, Empire has a little bit more dedicated missiles, whereas Kislev kind of being more hybridized. You're at risk of your missiles being in melee more often. Cannons are going to be really good. Just, you know, traditional type cannons are really good against something like Crushers. So, you know, Dwarfs, Empire, they'll probably struggle less. But like Bretonnia, for example, is going to have a nightmare of a time against Crushers. They're brutal against Kislev, as you have seen. Against something like Vampire Counts, too, where that armor comes into serious play. Against a direct trade into Blood Knights, healing also is a consideration there as well. You know, the leadership could be a bit of a factor in that matchup, but I could see them performing well against Vampire Counts also. We'll have to kind of wait and see. High Elves historically have sometimes struggled against very good armored cavalry. So we'll see. I'm definitely interested to try them out in some more Immortal Empires matchups, but that's for the future. For today, that's all I have for you, so hopefully you enjoyed this. We'll go one more time, run through the army values real quick. Powder Guts did manage to pay for themselves, but just their presence at the end of the battle was definitely tactically useful. Really, all the kills came from the Crushers, right? That's where the majority of the damage value from the entire army came. Even the Iron Blaster struggled to pay for itself. Some of the Noblars are pretty cost-effective. The Cursed Noblar here with 100 kills and 666 damage gold value definitely made a deal with some kind of entity there. And the Bulls, of course, can be cost-effective if used well. Kind of get raffle-stomped a little bit here. But as you'd expect, Boris performs great. Like I said, he's awesome in this matchup. The Warbear Riders do kind of get swamped a little bit and just out-traded straight up by the Crushers, which is definitely rough. I mean, granted, they didn't get the best engagement either. In both cases where the Crushers were able to kind of charge in without the Warbears getting a great countercharge. So that did affect the way that engagement played out, absolutely. But again, I think this is maybe just a little bit too small and elite. It's definitely a problem, though. Like I said, maybe you just cut both of these straight up for Little Groms, and then, again, go a little bit wider on infantry. In terms of magic for Kislev, I don't really see anything being wildly useful here, if I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, I think about Kislev's spell selection, right? And, like, if we just look here, I mean, yeah, you've got, I guess, from Lore of Frost here, or Lore of Ice, rather. Like, Heart of Winter is not wildly useful because it's better against multi-model units. Crystal Sanctuary is nice in domination, has some use case there, but not wildly useful in land battles. Death Frost, maybe you cast this, try and snipe an ogre character, but they can always just heal themselves. Frostblades is one. I really like this against demons, and it's reasonably useful against ogres as well, so maybe this is an augment that you do take. Ice Sheet, maybe you try and slow him down, especially if you're, like, trying to kite at all. It's a little bit of an awkward matchup to kite in, but, you know, Horse Archer is actually probably a better pick in many ways than infantry archers, because the ogres, once you deal with the saber tusks, then they don't really have anything in that 90 speed range, so this could be useful for some kiting or hit and run. Ice Maiden's Kiss, I mean, you get a frostbite from this, but the damage is not useful enough for it to be usable in this matchup, so already for one Lore of Magic, you're down to really only 2 spells that are, like, actually useful in a land battle here. And then you look at Lore of Tempest, and it's a similar situation. Hailstorm doesn't really do enough damage to monstrous infantry to be worth it. Gust of True Flight, I mean, ranged and accuracy spells have famously been completely useless throughout the course of all of Total War Warhammer, and I don't think that's changed. Swiftwing is kind of situationally fun and okay, but charge bonus buffs also, they have to be, like, very specific to be really good, and this one is not that great, I don't think. The spell, it lasts a decent amount of time, but it's a little bit tricky to use in practice because of the area of effect. Fighting Wind, again, doesn't do anything here. Same thing, Blizzard, Hawks of Misha, both of these area of effect damage spells don't really do anything, so, I mean, for me, Lore of Tempest doesn't offer you anything at all in this matchup, really, so, maybe you don't even bring a caster here. Maybe you just bring a second Patriarch, honestly. Like, legit. Maybe you just bring Boris 2 Patriarchs. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, though. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification every time I upload a new video. You'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.